Tonight, a special edition of World News Tonight, Israel at war. Triggered by the horrific terror attack from Hamas, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu now warning tonight Israel's retaliation has only begun. And as Israel pounds Gaza, Hamas now threatening to kill more than 100 hostages inside Gaza. Tonight, Israel ordering the complete siege of Gaza. New images showing Israeli forces hammering Hamas targets. Explosions leveling buildings. Black smoke filling the air. Hamas militants firing more rockets into Israel. Israel's Iron Dome fully activated. All of this ignited by the surprise attack by Hamas by land, sea, and air. At least 1,000 Hamas fighters crossing into Israel. More than 900 dead here in Israel, at least 11 Americans among them. One of the first targets in Israel, a music festival, where Hamas militants opened fire on young people in the crowd. At least 260 bodies recovered from the scene. My interview tonight with a young man who ran for cover. He says several of his friends were shot and killed right in front of him. He was shot too. He somehow survived. And tonight, hear the young father whose wife and 2 little girls were kidnapped by Hamas. The phone call with his wife when the call dropped out. The phone now pings in Gaza. And then the video. He recognized his wife in video online showing militants beginning to cover her head. Also tonight, our Ian panel right there as convoys of Israeli tanks now head toward Gaza, preparing to launch a wide-scale assault. Israel already cutting off power, water, electricity. Nearly 700 now dead in Gaza. And tonight, it turns out Hamas had been planning its shock attack on Israel in secret for months. The video showing fighters training on motorized paragliders practicing their descent into Israel. Tonight, Ian and our team taking cover as Hamas fires more rockets into Israel. Also tonight, the haunting discovery. 100 bodies found in just one small town in southern Israel. Matt Gutman traveling to the region, the towns and villages where it took longer to push Hamas out than Israel had expected. And then a code red declared as Matt and the team were reporting there. And tonight, the new threat from Hamas, with Israel now retaliating against Gaza, Hamas now threatening to execute those 100 hostages on camera, one by one. Families now fearing whether their loved ones will ever come home. James Longman on the ground here. The U.S. rushing supplies and air defenses to Israel, Martha Raddatz tonight and what she's learned. And Mary Bruce here on the Americans killed and whether the U.S. believes there are Americans among those being held captive in Gaza. A special edition of World News Tonight begins now.
From ABC News, this is a special edition of World News Tonight with David Muir, reporting tonight from Tel Aviv.
And good evening tonight from Tel Aviv. We are here in Israel, a nation at war after that brutal surprise attack by Hamas. The worst attack on Israel in 50 years. Hamas militants coming in by land, sea, and air, targeting civilians. Horrific acts of brutality just now coming to light. Tonight, Israel vowing vengeance, calling up 300,000 military reserves, already hammering Hamas targets in Gaza, ordering a total siege of Gaza. But with this retaliation comes the new threat from Hamas tonight, that they will kill the 100 hostages in Gaza one by one on video before the world if the attacks continue. The death toll mounting on both sides tonight, at least 900 dead here in Israel, 11 Americans among them, and nearly 700 now dead in Gaza.
Tonight, a special edition of the CBS Evening News. We're in Tel Aviv as Israel's prime minister vows new attacks against Hamas that will reverberate for generations. Tonight, this country on edge as the number of Americans killed in Israel is rising. Here are tonight's headlines. Israel launches a new siege of Gaza as Hamas threatens to kill hostages. The bloodshed continues after a deadly weekend, taking the lives of hundreds of Israelis and Palestinians. Our Holly Williams is near the front lines.
We've been hearing incoming rocket fire, forcing our team to scramble for cover just minutes ago.
The horror at a music festival, overtaken by terror. More than 200 people killed by Hamas militants. Others taken hostage at gunpoint.
I lost like 2 liters of blood. I was really sure that that's it. I'm gonna die.
The U.S. begins airlifting weapons and munitions to Israel as U.S. warships move into position off Israel's coast. And an American professor tells us he was on the phone with his daughter when she was killed.
My heart go back to my country, to my people, killers, murderers.
Protests from both sides, one side yelling, "Free Palestine," the other shouting, "Terrorists."
You're inside with your kids and you're all huddled together.
Yes,
And where are the terrorists?
inside our house.
And a mother of three's story of survival, jumping from a second-story window after militants set her house on fire. Her message tonight to the world.
I have no idea what's going to happen next, but I'm sure that whatever happens, we're gonna be stronger.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. We begin tonight here in Tel Aviv following the unprecedented terror attack by Hamas militants and Israel's declaration of war for the first time in 50 years. Israel's military is bombarding Gaza with airstrikes raining down on Hamas, including command centers located inside apartment buildings.
Tonight, our special edition of Nightly News from Israel as the military here orders a complete siege on Gaza after the unprecedented attacks by Hamas. Israeli airstrikes hitting targets across Gaza. After at least 700 Israelis were killed in the worst attack here in decades. 11 Americans among the dead. The stunning images. Hamas attacking by land, sea, and air, dropping out of the sky on paragliders and opening fire on a music festival. 260 people massacred there. The new drone images revealing the scope of destruction. Hamas now threatening to kill hostages after kidnapping more than 100. The White House now warning Americans are likely among them. The horrifying videos, a woman ripped away from her boyfriend, a 12-year-old boy taken away by Hamas gunmen. We spoke with his family. Do you keep coming back to the video?
It's something that no parent, no human can ever imagine, to see a child in the hands of terrorists.
The desperate race to save the abducted. Israel calling up 300,000 reservists. Is a ground offensive coming? Our Richard Engel near the Gaza border taking cover under fire. He joins us tonight. And President Biden huddling with advisors as the U.S. moves a strike group closer to Israel. The growing questions: was there an intelligence failure before the attack? And did Iran play a role as security ramps up back home?
This is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt, reporting tonight, live from Israel.
Good evening from Israel, a nation beyond stunned tonight, vulnerable in ways it has never had to accept after a far weaker adversary, Hamas, unleashed a ferocious attack over the weekend that seemed to come from everywhere, raining deadly rockets into residential streets and sending militant fighters across the Gaza border where they murdered and kidnapped Israeli civilians. Israel says it has retaken control of areas Hamas had seized. Tonight, Israeli officials cutting off Gaza, the Hamas stronghold, declaring it is under siege and hitting it with repeated airstrikes. Nearly 1,400 in Gaza and Israel have died in the attacks and counteroffensive. The U.S. confirming at least 11 Americans have been killed, and President Biden saying the U.S. believes Americans may be, some of those, being held by Hamas. Since we arrived on the ground here, we have seen incredible stories of bravery and loss and seen unforgettable images of violence.